Hey, this is Warren Redlick with the AI Stocks Report for May 20th. We're going to talk about a lot of different AI news, Google, Nvidia, especially coming up. But we're also going to talk about three companies that I've added to secondary tier coverage of what's going on in AI: Marvell Networks, Micron Technology, and Vertiv. Marvell makes infrastructure. Vertiv makes the cooling infrastructure. Micron makes the memory. Marvell networking technology. These companies are very important for what's going on with AI. This is our current list, second tier of companies. I'll talk about the primary tier, which I usually talk about, but just really quick: Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Oracle are what are called hyperscalers. These are the large data center companies that they do a lot of other things, but where they stand out in AI today is they are providing data center access to a lot of the other companies. Samsung is a Korean technology company that does a lot of chips, chip fabs, memory, and a lot of other things related to infrastructure. Korean-based company. Micron Technology also makes memory chips, killing it lately. Xiaomi is a Chinese company that we're able to cover. They do have a publicly traded stock price. Arista Networks, another tech company, another networking tech company. Marvell that I just mentioned, and Vertiv. So with our second tier, as you can see, I created a new index, AISRY, AI Stocks Report Y, the second index. The other index is AISRX. These are indexes I created. And it's 1,000 because effective today. That's the weights on the stocks. We'll see where they go. Yesterday it was a little higher, so they're down. You can see Marvell Networks had a good day. Micron had a pretty good day. A lot of the other stocks were negative. Vertiv took it hard. We're going to go through what happened there. Vertiv had a sharp pullback after a strong recent run. Vertiv continues to benefit from explosive data center power and cooling demand with recent large project wins. So I looked into Vertiv when I'm deciding to add these companies. Vertiv does cooling and power for data centers, and I was wondering, is this just a cooling and power company? No, their business is very, very focused on data centers. So they are an infrastructure play for the data center world. Tom Nash talks about picks and shovels. I think, this is a classic picks and shovels company. Micron is a very hot company that a lot of people are talking about. They were up 2.5% yesterday. This is a memory company. They are one of the leaders in high bandwidth memory. Samsung is a big memory company. SK Hynix is a big memory company. I'm going to do a deep dive on memory soon. Check out Cern Basher's account on X. He has a recent article about memory that's worth reading. Memory is a really important factor in what's going on with everything in AI and developing these data centers. The data center chips, the chips and hardware for data centers really depend on high bandwidth memory to accelerate what they do. The long-term view, I agree with this. Micron has shifted from cyclical memory to a critical AI infrastructure supplier with multi-year HBM visibility, high bandwidth memory visibility. There's a lot of volatility in all these stocks. Marvell Networks up strongly yesterday, but this is again a lot of volatility in the sector. Marvell has a meaningful position in AI networking and custom compute. Similar to Broadcom, people don't realize Broadcom does a lot of everything. There's a lot of these companies that have these little niches within AI infrastructure that matter a lot. And as the demand for data centers grows, then all these companies have a lot of work to do. There's some issues that we're going to talk about later in this video about whether the power is there, whether the electrical infrastructure is going to be there to support all this growth. In our primary tier, the AISRX index, Palantir was the only stock that was up. Everybody else was down. Broadcom at the bottom, but mostly just small term volatility. And Nvidia is the stock probably to watch because the earnings are today. Google was down a little bit. They're in the middle of their Google I/O event. I think this is just typical volatility. Broadcom down a little bit. As far as I can tell, there's only good news related to Broadcom, but typical volatility again. In AI news, Nvidia's earnings report is tonight. This will be a big signal for everyone about what's going on with AI in general. Analysts have very high expectations. I'm going to give you a quick summary of analysts later in this video. A lot of the supply chain for what Nvidia does: TSMC for manufacturing chips, Micron for the memory, Broadcom, ASML, AMD, Marvell, Arista for all the other things that go along with it. This happens with Elon all the time. People are going to be worried about Jensen Huang's tone. His tone on China exposure, inference versus training mix. We'll see what Nvidia reports. They usually beat expectations and have good numbers, and everything goes up after that. Maybe this will be a good quarter. Maybe this won't. This is the type of thing that fuels volatility and can really, knock AI stocks for a loop or give them a boost. And then there can be good news and the markets can react the wrong way. It's very, very hard to predict what happens short term. Google's I/O is going on. They've launched the new Gemini 3.5 series of models, Gemini Omni, a new multimodal world model capable of generating and editing video while maintaining physical consistency. I will be playing with that soon. From what I understand, Gemini 3.5 Flash is the current model that you can access. There's a Gemini 3.5 Pro coming. Gemini 3.5 Flash is notably better. However, apparently it's more expensive if you're using it in volume. I'm going to play with this stuff and I'll let you know what I see when I play with it. I now have a Gemini Pro account or whatever, so I can play with it and get access to the more advanced models. Gemini Spark, a new always-on personal agent, was announced and positioned as a major step toward proactive AI assistance. So Google's strategy, this is something I see a lot. Google's strategy of embedding advanced Gemini capabilities deeply across search, Android workspace, and developer tools. When I'm looking at my YouTube statistics, my YouTube analytics, I can ask Gemini, hey, what's going on with this video? When I'm generating thumbnails, I am now using Google Gemini through YouTube to generate thumbnails. I upload the video and it generates a thumbnail. I generated 2 of my own thumbnails on my last video, and there's this thing called A/B testing where you can compare your thumbnails. And I took the winner and then I tested it against the thumbnail that Google generated, that YouTube generated with Gemini, and the Gemini one won. I did a recent video on Google's I/O event, preview of what's coming. You can check that video out. I did a video recently on a Nvidia earnings preview yesterday. You can check that out. Another thing coming out of Google I/O is a growing focus on agentic AI capabilities. The thing I would say here about agentic AI is it's a really hot topic right now. I am just beginning to start to play with agentic AI, and my gut is, having ridden a lot of technology waves, agentic AI is hot now. I'm not convinced it will be the big driver of AI in the future. I think it's a factor that some people are going to use a lot. And I'm not sure whether this spreads beyond the initial 5% early adopters, and your friend who's out there, drinking beers is going to start using agentic AI in his daily life. I think the real big movers in AI are going to be the things that hit everyone. So if a technology is useful to the 5%, it may be very significant for productivity for that 5%, but I'm not sure how big that is for humanity as a whole. And we'll see. Maybe agentic AI is something that we're all going to adopt. I'm not convinced of that yet. I'm not convinced we won't. I think all the AI companies are jumping on board the agentic AI bandwagon right now, and they're talking about designing the chips to make them work with agentic AI. I'm not sure how much that matters. I can see significant value in agentic AI in certain ways, the AI acting as agent doing things for you. I'm not convinced that that's the dominant role of AI in the future. I think there's a lot coming that's going to matter more. Very hard. I'm not sure I'm right. I think agentic, maybe it is the big deal, but I think there's so much more coming with AI. We're so early in this wave of technology that so much more is going to come, and it'll be fascinating to watch. I quickly want to cover what analysts have said. There's a new analyst rating from UBS, a pretty prominent analyst, giving an increased price target for Broadcom, AVGO. Apparently didn't move the stock, but I never believe analyst reports move the stock, but they're worth looking at. Company's ability to capture high margin business and AI clusters beyond traditional semiconductor cycles reinforces the view of Broadcom as a key beneficiary of the ongoing AI infrastructure build out over multiple years. Yeah, Broadcom is a key player in what's coming. If I'm right that Google is going to continue to grow and be, arguably the number one hyperscaler, and Google is using Broadcom for its chips, Broadcom's going to do really well. And I think Broadcom has many other customers that are using them to design custom ASICs for these hyperscaler projects. So very positive for Broadcom. All these companies are well positioned if AI continues to grow. All these companies are vulnerable if AI stumbles. We're going to be talking over the coming weeks about potential threats to AI. I did a video recently called Systemic Risk, where I talked about where the problems are, and I think those problems are becoming more evident. If that becomes a real hurdle that slows AI development, all these stocks are at risk in the short term. In the long term, everybody's probably going to win. And ahead of earnings, there's a multiple analyst reports. I'm not going to get into all of it. HSBC, Evercore, Cantor Fitzgerald, Morgan Stanley, BofA Securities. I talked about some of them in the video yesterday about Nvidia. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, and Demis Hassabis, their AI leader, both appeared at the Google I/O event, had keynote events. Sundar talked about the agentic Gemini era. Demis talked about Gemini Omni, their new multimodal model. I will say, I did a video about Google and about a preview of Google I/O, and not many people watched it. So I don't know that you care about what's going on with Google. I would encourage you to pay close attention to Google. I think Google may be the big winner of everything that's going on in AI, and they're underpriced. If you're looking at a stock, like I personally invested in Google, right? I'm looking at this. Elon saying Google's going to win. I'm looking at everything I'm seeing, and Google's underpriced considering the prospect of how successful they're likely to be. They cover so many layers of AI so well. Hyperscaler model, foundational model. They've got so much access to the consumer in so many different ways. Google's in a really good position. A nice little bit of news if you're an Andrej Karpathy fan like me. Andrej joined Anthropic. He's going to be working on one of the leading frontier models. Excited to see that. I would have rather he joined XAI because I'm a Grok fan, but I think it's good to see Andrej Karpathy getting back into it. And Anthropic is certainly the best coding model right now. I personally don't find the chatbot Claude that good, but for coding, like I've used it for code reviews of my apps and seems very good as a coding app. And so many other people are saying how good it is. Elon just said positive things about Anthropic's model as well. All four of these companies that are making foundation models are doing really well. They're innovating. They're coming up with great stuff. The big question is, do you have the inference compute to serve the demand? That's the question I see. It's not who's going to make the best model. It's who's going to have enough compute to answer our questions when we ask them. For the Tesla fans, the Baglino fan club is happy to promote Drew Baglino's Heron Power. When we talk about the challenges of powering data centers, Drew Baglino has a vision. Heron Power has a vision for 800-volt data centers. Their architecture is 1/3 the MV to rack electrical cost, 1/10 the installation labor, and half the inefficiency from grid to chip, unlocking faster, more affordable gigascale buildouts. This is a very, very important development. If you're concerned about the ability to build out data centers, if you're concerned in particular about the electrical infrastructures that's necessary to continue building out data centers, Drew has an answer that, as far as I've seen, nobody else has, and it looks like the best answer I've seen. So keep an eye on Heron Power. They may make it into our pre-IPO tier of companies soon. Friend of the channel, Farzad, announced his opinion that Google just won the consumer market for AI. He thinks Anthropic will have the best models for running businesses. Google will have the best models for everyday people and creatives. SpaceX AI will be the biggest hyperscaler by far. And OpenAI is probably cooked unless they pull a rabbit out of a hat. I don't agree with Farzad. My friend Larry, Tesla Larry on X, said that he thinks this is premature. My view is simple. All of these companies are likely to succeed. The demand for AI is growing so fast that everyone's going to do well. I think there's a challenge for OpenAI and Anthropic. Can they get enough inference compute to serve the demand? Google and SpaceX AI are best positioned to serve the demand that they're going to face. If you have the best model, but you don't have the compute to serve it to customers, there's another model that's 98% of your model, and I can get it cheap. Why am I paying extra for your model and waiting for it and getting messages that it's not available? That's the challenge that I think both Anthropic and OpenAI face. And right now, Anthropic looks like they're in a really good position, but it's very early and things change very fast in terms of the quality of the models. Yeah, they have the best models for coding right now. I don't know if they have the best models for running businesses. I'm not sure where that comes from. Look, I use ChatGPT a lot. I use Grok mostly unimpressed with Gemini and my use of it, but sometimes it's really good. So I think all these companies are going to perform really well in the future. And the idea that somebody's cooked, OpenAI is cooked if they overextend financially and then they can't generate the revenue to keep up with how much they've extended themselves because they don't have the inference compute to meet the demand. That's the hurdle they're going to face. Google has enough cash they can survive anything. Elon's always going to be able to find cash for anything he wants to do. Anthropic and OpenAI, they have this challenge. Can you continue generating revenue and grow your revenue to meet all the costs that you're taking on? And also this best model thing, like some models might be better at one thing, some models might be better at another thing. What's the most important thing to be good at? I think video generation on demand is going to be huge. And Grok is SpaceX AI, Grok is in a great position for that. Google will see. My last experience with Gemini creating videos wasn't good. They have a new model. Maybe it's better. I'm going to check that out. OpenAI basically gave up on generating video. A very good at image generation, my experience, ChatGPT, but they basically gave up on generating video. Supposedly Sora was like the best, and they haven't been able to carry that forward. Back to the infrastructure issue, there's this expert who spoke with AlphaSense, was very concerned about construction, the capacity crunch. Says that Microsoft is the clear leader on current capacity with Google in second place. Google's moving quickly on deployment commercialization of its TPUs. Meta's in third. Uncertainty about how much capacity Meta has right now. Amazon in fourth. That's a sense of where they stand now. The expert sees behind the meter microgrids as a practical and economically compelling solution for data center power, pointing to natural gas rich areas. If you generate your own, like Elon does this, right? XAI generates its own power. They put in gas turbines near Memphis to power their data centers for XAI. He thinks the near-term mix will likely be gas turbines, and battery energy storage systems tied to solar, and maybe small modular reactors. I'm not so sure that we're going to see that much nuclear deployed that quickly. That's a huge problem. Puts the cost of a standard non-GPU data center around $10 to $20 million per megawatt, rising to roughly $20 to $22 million per megawatt for an AI-focused build. If you think about that, a gigawatt data center would then be like $20 billion. I think Elon's doing them a lot cheaper than that, so I'm not sure where those numbers are coming from. But he sees a huge capacity crunch, all-time low driven by the need for AI training and inference. Doesn't expect the capacity crunch to ease anytime soon. There's issues with transformers. There's issues with all kinds of electrical infrastructure. I asked a friend about it, who's, my opinion, an expert on what's going on with energy and how it all connects to this, and he said this is all what he's seeing. So my personal expert on this agreed with much of what he said. I think there's huge problems with the ability to deploy data centers in the medium to long term. So whoever is able to deploy data centers at scale and continue to deploy in the face of all the hurdles, the electrical infrastructure, the politics, the geography, the zoning, the permitting, et cetera, whoever is able to continue to build out scale is going to be the bigger winner. I think Google is probably very well positioned for that. Elon has proven very innovative at that. I'm not so confident that Zuckerberg and Microsoft and Amazon are going to be as agile in deploying this stuff. We'll see. They're all good at it, but who's going to be most agile? Who's going to be able to get there? Who's going to be able to work their way around the problems? We'll see. Just a quick reminder that if you are a YouTube channel member, an ex-subscriber, or a supporter on Patreon, I have a series of options videos looking at long-term call options with a new metric that I haven't seen anybody else talking about as a way of looking at how these companies compare. AMD and Google stand out in a very special way, and I did a recent video talking about how you might be able to arbitrage those options. Not necessarily a recommended strategy, but a good thought piece for thinking about how do we address this. So please consider supporting me as a YouTube channel member, as a Patreon supporter, as an ex-subscriber to get access to those videos and think both about long-term call options and what we learned from that, what that reflects on long-term investing. Thank you so much for watching.